let's do it.
Hey, welcome back to PJ's Son Podcast. PJ's Son Podcast. Whatever the fuck it is. I'm your old buddy Dom. This is episode 19. So we're getting there. We're getting there, folks. Today is it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm gonna first introduce my buddy Ben. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, bud. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming down. I appreciate you. How long have we been working together? About a year? How long have you been there?
I got there October of last year.
Okay, so
Or a year before now.
all right, so a year and some change.
Yeah.
And at work, we have a lot of downtime to talk about stuff. It's funny to me how when you are from what I would consider, and not in any kind of bad way, shape, or form, like a different world, right? And I just mean in that, like geographically, right? Like you've been a country boy forever.
Yeah, I grew up till I was 12. We lived in Illinois, and then we moved down to Kentucky, and I went through junior high school down there, and then went in the Navy.
When did you get up to Missouri? Later on?
Yeah,
Much later.
on.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right. Okay.
Much later on.
It's not that much of a different like upbringing, but I'm more like kind of city. And so anyway, where I was going with that is the stuff that you know about 40-year fishermen, give or take a few years, right?
Absolutely. I grew up doing hunting and fishing.
Right.
And that was just, I didn't know it was not normal to eat that stuff for supper until some of the kids were making fun of
Yeah.
me, you know?
Yeah.
I thought that's just the way everybody lived.
Right.
You know?
So from fishing to hunting, Ben has told me, just deer after deer, and the funny stories you always say about the industry of the scent blockers and all the things one needs to keep his scent down. And you've told me you killed your biggest bucks in Crocs and shorts and a flannel.
Yeah, I had literally had a t-shirt, blue jeans, and tennis shoes on.
Yeah. So it's funny to hear like those guys that will spend their last dime on this and that, and then to hear from you and you will go out there smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, and they'll be, I've seen them, paint their faces and
Yeah.
the ghillie suits and
Ready for war.
Ready for war, and I'm going, well, I got this flannel on, and I shot this deer with a bow at 10 yards,
Right.
so I don't know
How effective
right
all that shit
Yeah,
is.
it's just I grew up just hunting, playing the wind.
Right.
Don't go to a spot if the wind's in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
Don't do, as long as you keep the wind in your favor, you're going to be good most
Odds
of the time.
go up.
Correct.
And so that's all been very interesting to me. And it's not like we fish at work, but let's say we did, catching 40-something catfish in a night is crazy to me. It's just something that I didn't have a lot of opportunity to do growing up. So like I've told you guys listening, I have learned so much from these guys at work, all of them, because they're all mostly pretty much country dudes that have grown up doing stuff like that. As I've said at nauseum, city boy, single mom, like just didn't have a lot of those opportunities. So it's fascinating to me in a bunch of different ways, the things I learned from all of you guys. But since we've been working together, and I told you the other day, I don't know why this wasn't on my radar from the jump, but I think sometimes that's how interesting things happen, right? They just have to come to you organically. We've been talking about your time in corrections the whole time I've known you. Like I remember, I think like you might have been starting your couple weeks of training, which you really didn't need to do because you were already at another lock, but just talking about like what you did before this and all that stuff. And you brought up being in corrections, and we had long conversations about this, and it wasn't until a couple weeks ago we were talking in the shop, and I was like, dude, you got to come fucking do the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. It's whenever you first join, I started the academy. That would be in November 6th of 1999.
99. So I was junior in high school because I graduated in 2001. So I think that sounds somewhere about right. So
Right.
why? Okay. Well, let's start from there then. Why corrections? Like where did that even to me where I'm from, corrections isn't on like being an electrician in the trades,
Right.
all that stuff, right? Like all that stuff is somebody's dad works at GM, somebody
Right.
I've never known anybody to work in corrections. So where does that idea even like
How did it originate?
yeah, where'd that even
Okay.
blossom from? Where the fuck do you
Well, growing up in a rural environment, you don't have near the
opportunity?
job opportunities, and working at a state job in Illinois, working for corrections was like one of the most revered positions that you could get.
Well, yeah, IDOT, any of that
Because,
shit.
you
Yeah,
know, it paid well, had good insurance,
steady.
and steady, and that sort of thing. So, that's how it kicked off. Of course, I was from Mount Sterling, but I ended up taking the job about 3.5 hours away up in Pontiac, Illinois.
I always thought you meant Pontiac, Michigan for some reason.
No, it's Pontiac, Illinois. It's Livingston County.
Okay.
It's let's say a couple hours south of Chicago.
Okay, so let's relate this. A lot of the guys on the towboats are from that Kentucky, Tennessee, that kind of area, right?
Sure.
Is it kind of the same mindset that growing up, so and so's dad's a riverboat captain, so and so's been on the boat for 30, his uncle, his brother, his. So I know that there's a good chance if I'm a worker, I can go get a job probably
Sure.
with a towboat company.
Sure, absolutely. But it wasn't really like that with getting into corrections. If that was the case, I wouldn't have had to take a job 3.5 hours away. You know what I'm saying?
Well, but is that where the closest prison is?
No, there was one right there in the same town
Really?
that I lived in, but that's where if you don't know somebody high up, you don't.
Sure.
Then you broaden your chances by going, well, let's see where is hiring.
Of course.
And I was a single dad, had 2 kids. I needed to go to work someplace.
Yeah.
So this was the best opportunity for me at that time.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
Do you think it makes sense to me? But being that are correctional facilities generally? Sorry, Echo's chewing on his bone. Hey, man. He's gonna just be
He's
with
good.
us. Is it just better to have correctional institutions out in the middle of nowhere for escape purposes? Like, is that, or is it also to do with who wants to live next to it? Like, if they just put a prison in St. Peter's wouldn't be what it is. Is that kind of the deal with the escape chances, or what you think?
I'm not sure if that's the case because the Western Illinois Correctional Center is literally a mile outside of town.
Okay, so some of them are right there next to everybody.
Yeah, and I've always wondered: is it do certain towns, certain counties, do they put a bid in whenever they know there's one going to be built to say, hey, come build it here because we have, we don't have much going on.
We'd all work there.
We'd all work there, type thing. I'm not sure if that's the way it works.
I hear you. It's just interesting to kind of like why,
Yeah, and heck, I've seen like Pontiac was in town.
The prison.
That's the one that was in death row. It was literally in Pontiac.
Wow. All right. So in '99, in the death row thing, guys, that like corrections as a whole, I think is very interesting. There's a part of me that for a few years of my life, I thought I might get to know it intimately. I'm so happy and fortunate that I didn't. However, well, my dad did a lot there, and my sister, I didn't mean to put her on blast. We're going to get back to Ben, but my sister is currently doing a little bit of time here in Missouri, and she called me yesterday, and the reason I will talk about it now and that I haven't before is that I didn't want to, you don't want to put somebody's shit out there if they don't want it to be, right? Because, convicts, inmates obviously are and can be looked at as broken people, bad people, all that other stuff. So I didn't want to throw my sister out like that. But when she called me yesterday, I had mentioned that I was having Ben on today, and asked her if, like, when she gets home, if she get home in March, so a couple months, if she would be willing to come on the podcast and talk to me about her actual time, right? So I thought that would be cool to have an officer on outside of the bars, and then also a very recent. Hopefully, she'll we'll get her in right when she gets home. Hopefully, but somebody who's just got out on from the inside of it, and kind of get her take on it. But the stuff she was telling me yesterday related. It was funny because you've told me so many stories from your side of it. And then she's telling me it's just it's kind of, I don't know. I think this whole thing worked out, and it's going to work out really cool. So stand by like March sometime. Hopefully I'll get my sister in, and she'll give us a rundown on what her experience was like. And I think it's going to be kind of cool. So, all right, getting back to you, Uncle Ben. 99, single dad, 2 kids. You got to figure it out. You got to go to work. So.
Right.
Department of Corrections, I'm pretty sure I can get through that. You've already been through the Navy. You're a disciplined guy, honest guy, all that stuff. So you go to, what happens?
I call Springfield. That's the hub. That's where you used to be able to call and say, hey, this facility's hiring, this not, whatever. Your odds of going here are not very good. Up here would be best. So I switched my preference over to Livingston County.
Okay.
And Pontiac ended up calling me like a week later, and I took the job.
We're back. Sorry about that. Kids were doing WrestleMania upstairs, and I had to yell. All right. Sorry. You get the bid.
Yes. So Pontiac called me. That's in Livingston County, and I accepted the job. And literally a matter of hours later, Dwight called me to go to work. Well, Dwight's a female facility.
Okay.
And there was no way in hell I was going there.
Why?
Too many horror stories that after I was in for a while.
Did you say horror or horror?
But, yeah, probably both. But yeah, there was too many stories I'd heard about it. And after I was in, I was absolutely confirmed it.
Well, this sounds juicy. Like what kind of horror stories? Just that females can be...
Well, first off, they're about 100 times more nasty than any male cell I was ever in.
Is that right?
Yeah, because we had to go down there for a shakedown, part of our training thing. And you almost feel like you need deloused.
Like biohazard suits.
Whenever you get out of there. They're so gross.
What's the deal with that?
I don't know.
That's weird.
It is.
Because you think like, the female, house, raising kids, all that shit, and that just goes out, huh?
That was my experience anyway.
Well, this ain't home and raising kids. This fucking prison.
Right. And, heard stories about inmates becoming pregnant.
Yeah, how's that work?
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and then like they all cycle up together, so you got just a bunch of fucking assholes on their period at the same time,
right.
Which is totally gross and shitty. And
then I'll tell you what, I think they're better at manipulating male officers than it is the other way in a male facility.
Listen, dude, it's not like they're in there at, when a 10 goes to prison, she's not a 10 anymore, right? Even if she's just naturally pretty without all kinds of makeup and her pumps on and all that shit.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's still a lot of women. And if a male officer, let's say, hasn't done that well with women on the outside,
you're on it right there.
That's
what it is.
And so then some chick throws eyes at him. I mean,
oh, look, I'm getting a little bit of attention right now.
Right. Bring me a cell phone.
Right.
Should we stop here? Well, yeah, let's. If it won't take you off track, I just want to bounce off all the walls and just start asking questions as you talk, because I think it's just.
Yeah, that's fine.
What happens to okay, there's a female inmate and a male officer. They strike up this thing. She's flirting. Da, 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 da. And what do they ask for? Like that you've heard of? What is first? And I know back then cell phones weren't so important.
Right.
But like, what is it? What's first? Like drugs?
Usually it's drugs. The way they would do it is like they would strike up some sort of nonchalant relationship.
Absolutely.
And then the officer might go, well, I need a position, like they do jobs throughout the facility.
Right.
And so, well, I'll make you one of my porters that stay out at night and
Okay.
clean and this and that, that sort of thing. And then it progresses on to another favor, then another favor, and then they might meet up someplace.
Yeah.
With the camera's showing,
Right. The broom closet.
And then she, by this time, she's got her nails in you, and she's like, "Well, if you don't do this, if you don't bring me this, then I'm going to go."
You lose your pension.
You lose your pension. So then after they get them on the hook like that, they basically have you.
Oh, so what? Like, how does that go then? If a female offender or inmate winds up pregnant, is it like a mandatory that they have to get a DNA test to find out which one of their officers?
Absolutely.
Really?
Well, whoever she's accusing.
But what if she doesn't accuse or say anything? Like, what if they're like, "Hey, how'd you end up pregnant?" She's like, "I don't know."
Right. Well, they're not going to, I don't think they're going to go through there and not going to DNA test every male officer that works there.
They can probably get a warrant.
They probably could. But I don't know how much
they might not need it.
Right.
It's fucking, you do what we say.
Yeah. Usually it's, I think that they've done it to get favors brought in from the outside, whether it be drugs, cigarettes. Sometimes it's just phone calls, extra phone calls, food, whatever, because they don't have a whole lot, so anything is better than nothing,
yeah. And if you have a baby in prison, if a female had a baby in prison and she's doing 20, that baby goes to the state or like family anyway, right? So it's like, that's a really shitty pawn to use to get what you want, because you're not going to be able to raise that child more than likely, if you ever see it at all.
Right.
Because you might catch more cases while you're in there and end up doing 45, or who knows?
I've seen not in the female prison, but I've seen people go in on a piddly drug charge that had like 15 months to do and catch so many assault cases on officers that they literally had seg time for the next 40 years.
Wow.
And it was only doing a 15-month bid.
Wow.
Because every assault adds 7 years to your sentence.
Really?
Yes.
You don't get 7 years in the civilian world for an assault, but in prison you do.
Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
And going back to like the females, doing their thing to like, as a guy who hasn't had a lot of trouble with women, and I'm not saying like I'm some stud, just in general, I was raised by women, so I just I have always been comfortable talking to females. But a compliment, even in that situation, I'm happily married, everybody. Alicia, chill out. But a compliment, even in that situation, when I was younger and stuff, goes a long way. So imagine a dude who's really never gotten a compliment, didn't go to prom with the hot chick or whatever the thing is. It's like, "Hey, looking good today." That's enough,
Well, yeah, because these women, they recognize it in high school. They know they know the guy that's standing over in a corner, shy and probably awkward.
Very much.
And versus the popular guy that doesn't have any trouble talking. So, those awkward guys are working in the prison system too.
Sure.
So if one of those girls that was normally way out of their league, kind of gives him a wink.
Yeah.
He's like, "Uh-oh."
Well, and the facts are, females have something that males just chemically need, and it's like, and so they can control some situations. And I guess more power to you if you need an extra honey bun and all it takes is to flirt with this dude. Hey man, who am I to judge somebody for scamming, right?
Absolutely.
And so, all right, so where were we at? Oh, no, you were talking about the female. So you would go down there on a training thing, and what you were saying was you were pretty happy you didn't end up in the women's.
Absolutely, because I only did that the one time, and that was literally part of the academy training, and they sent us up there for the shakedown for that place, and I was ecstatic that I did not change my mind and decided to go to
how long is academy?
6 weeks.
And in that time we're talking cuffing, just from the bottom of the top, how you put handcuffs on.
It's
right control.
It was they called it paramilitary type
Sure.
stuff. We had PT daily. We had tests we took. We had qualifications for firearms. We had,
Because you have to know the law,
yes, you have to know, you know,
the prison system law anyway.
correct, which is different.
Yeah.
In the same some aspects, but it's different.
Yeah.
So.
Where do all the inmates go when you shake them down? Like just to the pod, the general area. They'll just go sit them down at tables while you're shaking down their cells.
Right. Yep. That's
So
exactly
they just
what
have
do.
to like. So when you did it, not just that one, but anytime, it doesn't strike me that you're the guy that's just gonna just because to be a dick throw people's stuff everywhere.
No.
But
No.
people do that, right?
Oh yeah, there's those. I always call those badge heavy guys.
Yeah.
They go through this little bit of training. They throw a correctional officer's badge on their chest, and they think they're Johnny Law.
Fucking Rambo.
Yeah. There's pieces of shit officers. Is
Right.
What they are.
And because I've seen it just on TV, but the inmates, like, they don't have a lot, but it seems like, and I know this goes both ways, but just on TV, it seems like the little bit that they have is very organized, and maybe this is whatever I've seen, but it's very organized. There's very little to have. So what they do have, they cherish.
Oh yeah, it's obviously it's prison, so it's a very structured environment.
Right.
And they get issued their hygiene products. And,
Yeah.
all that stuff. And I'll tell you some of the worst things I seen while I was in there was anybody like another inmate stealing stuff out of their property box, or officers that, this inmate may be out of toothpaste or toilet paper or something, and them just, not giving it to him just to be an asshole. That shit happens too. So, I mean, it happens. And the bad thing about that is if you got one officer that did this, let's say on midnight shift, and they're locked up and they're sitting there pissed,
Stewing.
they're just pissed. It may be not that guy that was a dick to him.
Yeah.
It may be the next.
You come in.
And they're still pissed off, and because they don't see it as personal. They see a uniform and go, I'm getting you next.
Officer across the board did this to me.
Right. Yeah. So that was something I always tried to. Anybody knew we're not there to punish the inmates.
Yeah.
They're being punished.
Yeah. Well, they already have been.
They already have been punished.
But you're right. They're living it.
They're living it. So if they have something coming, if they toilet papers, whatever they need, give them that shit.
I think so.
Because you're just creating an environment, a hostile environment where there doesn't need to be one, and you may not be the one that reaps some repercussions of it.
Yeah, right.
So
when you told me, and I would have guessed this about you anyway, but it cemented what I already thought I knew about you, that like your mindset was always like, they've already been judged. They've already had their peers judge them, and an actual judge judge them and sentence them. That's no longer your job to punish.
For sure.
Right.
That's absolutely. They say the job of a correctional officer is for the safety and security, not only of the facility, but of the inmates as well.
Yeah.
So if you're in there and you're acting a fool, it's going to find you.
Yeah.
It will find you,
Well, and we talked about this exact thing the other day. It behooves you to be on the bet. Now, that doesn't mean they can't turn on you. I get that part, but like, it behooves you to be on the good side of right, because you said at some points there was 70 inmates to one officer, something like that.
Oh yeah. Well, that was when I transferred to Western Illinois Correctional Center. That was open, so there was 407 inmates per house and 4 officers for the house.
I mean, odds, fuck odds. I don't
Right.
care your black belt or your boxing career or your
Doesn't
what.
matter. You're going to lose that situation. The inmates run the show anyway.
So I was going to ask you that. Let's get that clear.
They absolutely run the show.
Right.
Just from the numbers.
Yeah.
But the ones that they know that they run the show. Most inmates want to do their time as easily and peaceful as possible. But they also know if you mess with their food, anything. That's where the riots and shit.
Yeah.
That's where that pops off at, is not being given the essentials.
Yeah.
So
Look, I don't have a lot, but don't take that little bit from me.
Exactly.
Because now I am going to be a fucking monster.
Right.
And, I think it's across the board, even at work. We're very civilized. We work for Department of Defense, da-da-da-da.
Right.
Don't touch somebody else's food in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
That's just like, I don't even know where that comes from, but it's like, it's an innate thing that you just have inside of you. Like, well, dude, I brought this here for me.
Yeah.
It doesn't have your fucking name on it. Don't touch it. Maybe that's from childhood. Maybe that's from whatever. If it doesn't belong to you, keep your fucking hands off of it.
Yeah. One of the worst I ever seen, there was a older gentleman, inmate, and he was celled up with a young guy. And the young guy kept getting into his property box, eating his crackers, basically. And he warned him, stay out of my property box. And it happened a second time. And I happen to be working that house, and I hear all kinds of commotion going on in the wing. So I walk down there, and I look inside, and I have to tell the guy that's in the control room to pop the door open.
Yeah.
And it looked like somebody had dipped a paintbrush into red paint and just started slinging it all over the walls. So what had happened was this guy, the older gentleman that had warned the guy, stay out of my property box, he waited till he went to sleep, and he took his TV and smashed it on his head, and then took one of the pieces, and I bet you this guy had 150 stab wounds.
Wow. From TV glass?
Just from, it's plastic.
Okay.
TV plastic, and of course, when I say 150 stab wounds, shit, they didn't go in a quarter inch.
It's death by 1,000 cuts.
And he didn't die.
No, I'm saying though.
Yeah, but that was how ruthless it was. I mean,
for crackers.
Over a package of crackers.
But come on, man. Didn't that younger guy fucking know? Like, if there's look, my sister got done telling me this. My dad told me this when he got out. One of the conversations we had, other people that I know that have went to college, like when you get there, I've heard, you can confirm or deny this, but basically they ask for your papers. So they want to know what you've done to be there. So if you are a sex offender or something, that will get rid of you quick. But like, and then it seems to me, and I'm sure some of this is Hollywood too, shit I've seen in movies, but like, there's a couple rules that am I mistaken, that you know pretty soon when you get there that just fucking don't break these, like.
Yeah, there's
a code.
Absolutely. There's definitely a code. And as far as what they did to get there, we had I can't even remember the name of the system now, but you could just punch in their number.
Right.
And you would just bring up everything.
Yeah, but that's for corrections officers. I'm talking about other inmates. Like, don't you have paperwork or something that they want to know?
Dom, I never seen, they seem to know, they can sniff them out, what they're there for, faster than I can. I'm not kidding you. If it's a sexual predator, they know it immediately. Before I do. I just think it's another guy coming in.
Well,
they're like, nope, that guy's a tree jumper. And tree jumper is, what they code for hiding in trees and jumping down on little kids and shit like that.
Yeah.
So
because if a pedophile claims that he's in there for smuggling dope across state lines, there, and unfortunately I know this from experience, there are words you say and phrases that come with dealing dope. How many keys, how many pounds, how many what'd you sell a gram for? You know what I mean? You like, okay, it's the same thing as if somebody claims that they were with 2nd Battalion 1st Marines. Like, oh no shit, what company? They say some bullshit, I got you. Like, dude, don't do that,
Right.
But like, so that just the talk back and forth, I think you could probably weed out pretty quick. But I thought for some reason they had like a manila envelope with them that had their court case and their charges. And I'm sure,
well, some of them do. They'll request them because they're wanting to do appeals, or they want
right.
They want to look up law books, but they need their case there so they can review it and this and that,
right?
That sort of thing.
But there's a code. So did this older guy wait until that young dude was sleeping because he was a little bit older? or just it doesn't matter, I'm gonna get you?
No, it was because he was older. He had to get the upper hand.
Yeah,
I
sure.
mean, this guy was in the 60s, at the time, and this kid was probably mid 20s. So he knows that if he squares off,
Better, worse
he's
chance.
probably not gonna win that fight.
Yeah.
But if I wait till you go to sleep and I
Yeah.
smash a fucking TV over your head
Yeah.
and start stabbing you with it, I just leveled the playing field a little bit.
You're literally not gonna know what hit you.
Right.
Yeah. When my dad got home, for some reason, he was able to take that little TV, the clear plastic TV.
Yep.
And when I went out to the Motorcycle Mechanics Institute in Phoenix, I literally had a twin mattress in the back of my S10, trash bags with clothes in them, whatever. My buddy drove out there with me, whatever I could fit in the little bitty extended cab. And then I had one of those TVs. And anybody that would come over, my buddies from school, and she'd be like, well, what the fuck's going on with that TV?
Clear TV?
Oh, it was my old man's from prison, Like,
Yeah.
Jesus, fuck,
Yep.
But
yeah. Little 13-inch clear TVs.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. All right. So where were we? We were okay. So your first duty station, if you will.
That was in Pontiac, Illinois.
Okay.
They called it the Thunderdome, where the bad boys roam, because Pontiac was an all segregation unit. So the courts didn't sentence you to Pontiac. You got sentenced to other facilities. Then you showed that you couldn't abide by the rules there. And, fucked up somewhere, assaulted somebody.
Yeah.
And then you got sent to Pontiac. So it was the worst of the worst.
Right.
Inmates went to Pontiac.
Yeah. I know. Well, I only know because I remember my dad telling me that here in Missouri, well, whatever, he went to Fulton to do his diagnostic, I think. And he was telling me about why did you change places? Because he ended up doing his time in Moberly. But that's what he was telling me, was that like they find out if you're affiliated,
Right.
blah, blah, blah,
Yep.
white dude with the Aryan Brotherhood, you go here, shit like that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it does make, and my sister did the same thing. She went to Vandalia first,
Okay.
and then now is it Chillicothe, I guess,
Right.
figured out. Which I need to point out too, folks. Detective Growich that came on here, and when we talked about the Pam Hupp case, Pam Hupp is in Chillicothe where my sister is. She's in
Wow.
a different house or wing or whatever they call it. So my sister hasn't seen her, but my sister really didn't know the whole story because I was asking, I'm like, hey, is that fucking, she was like, yeah, she's here, but I don't know her or anything. She's like, what's up with her? I'm like, she's a fucking monster, like don't do anything to her, but she fucking deserves it, Also, that gal, she just got out. This gal, what was the fucking story? Ah, damn it. I'm going to forget it all now. Her mom basically convinced her from a young age that she had, do you know the story?
Yeah. The
Dee Dee or, what's her?
something Rose.
Yeah.
Yeah, that gal.
I just knew all this. She was in there with my sister too. She just got out, but apparently she's doing like a Dateline
Yeah.
big thing and about what her mom did to her psychologically.
Well, she talked her boyfriend into killing her mom. Yeah.
Can you blame her?
Not at all.
You know what I mean? Like there are some things I think to just like,
Yeah, it should have been done a long time ago.
yeah.
Yeah, she was a miserable piece of shit.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
while we're on this, we're going to just keep getting off track and fuck it. We'll roll. My dad told me one time there was a guy he was in there with. This guy was doing 25, I think. His sister got raped. They were, high school or whatever, younger. His sister gotten raped. She knew who the guy was, obviously. And so he found out. There was a big keg party one night. He went in with a 357. My dad knew the guy pretty well. Went in with a 357, blew the guy's head off in front of the whole party, poured himself a beer from the keg, went outside, unloaded his pistol, put it away from him, sat there, drank his beer, smoked a couple cigs while the law got there. Stood up, put his hands behind his back, and I'm not refusing. You guys don't need to worry about me. Pistol's over there. It's unloaded.
Yep.
Here we go. I know what I did. I'm okay with the consequences.
Right.
It's worth it to me.
Yes.
And that I so much agree with being a father of daughters and shit like that. I don't ever want to go to prison. I think it would be fucking miserable. What a waste of time. It's 12 hours at the lock sometimes with no boat seems like a long fucking day.
Sure.
Much less in there. But it's that's one of those things that certain men, certain people, women too, calling the law and getting that guy arrested just isn't enough for me. Right?
Absolutely.
Like if something happened to somebody I love, like I hope that the prison system, the inmates get a hold of that motherfucker and give him what he's got. But I can't, that hope isn't enough, right? Like I need to see it through.
Well, yeah, absolutely. There was a guy that was in the infirmary whenever I worked at Western Illinois Correctional Center. This guy was late 70s probably. And he was always, I'd never seen him in a house, always in the infirmary. So I asked him one night, I'm like, what are you in for? And he said, murder. So, okay, this is his first, have you been in and out of the system? And he said, no, it's my first time ever. And I thought, what in the hell, man?
Interesting.
I had to know more.
Yeah.
So I said, well, what was the deal? He said, well, my granddaughter was in an abusive relationship, and she got away from it, and then she took him back, and then this and that. And he said, I got diagnosed with terminal cancer. I got about 6 months. He said, I just went and killed him.
Wow.
He's like, well, you're not gonna harm my granddaughter anymore. He said, I'm gonna stay out. I'm gonna live out my last 3, 4, 5, 6 months, however I got, right here in this infirmary.
I got nothing negative to say about that guy.
And that's the only thing I could do. I was like, you know what? Not too sure I wouldn't do the exact same thing. 6
months?
Yeah.
I do whatever the fuck I want anyway. You tell me I got 6 months to live.
Yeah.
Not do whatever I want, like hurt someone, but I'm gonna go. But yeah,
Sure.
I find nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And I thought, well, to me, there's no flaw in your character whatsoever, man. None. Because I can't say that I wouldn't do the exact same thing.
And other than that, other than the fact that he had been convicted as a murderer, which I'm not the law, so I can't say that. Well, I think that's self-defense, whatever. But he was a guy you could work with.
Absolutely.
He was a guy the guy that worked at the gas station up the street you'd known all your life.
Could be me,
Charlie.
me or you or anybody that we know.
Yeah.
So you never know, especially if in that circumstance, if you had a granddaughter and you're already got a really bad diagnosis. I'm done. You're not going to hurt my granddaughter no more.
Right. Matter of fact, anybody need anything like that before I go? Because I'm the one that's going to, you can ask me this one time. You need somebody that has hurt you and done you wrong. I've no problem.
Sure.
It was interesting too. My dad was telling me about that guy, and he was going to be getting out soon. And he had heard just from life going on, talking to COs and new guys coming in. My dad said the same thing. Just a cool dude from around the way that wasn't going to let something like that happen to his sister.
Sure.
And I just remember the one thing that he was freaking about being free. What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? Blah, 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 blah. And the one thing that I remember, somebody had told him about remote garage door openers. And he was like, what now? And they're like, yeah, man, you just fucking pull up and hit this button on your visor and it opens your garage door. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
He'd been in so long.
He'd been in so long that you still manually open your garage door when he went away.
Sure.
If you had a fucking, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's institutionalized.
Yeah. And so he was like, but imagine, but like a CD, a flash drive, these little things that we could give a fuck about. These dudes, it's like
overwhelming.
Yeah, it's NASA science to them, and we're like a flash drive. Who gives a fuck about it?
Right.
It's interesting how
because we got to see the technology progress.
The evolution.
They did not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's weird to think that a big deal, but again, as a kid, I remember the first cordless phone my mom ever had. It was a fucking trip. I'm like, holy shit,
Yeah, hell, I grew up with rotary phone that you only had to dial the last 4 digits of the phone number
that's weird.
To call somebody.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Unless it was long distance.
Yeah.
Long distance was literally 7 miles away.
Wow.
So,
right. So, all right. You go up to Pontiac, the Thunderdome. What was it?
They called it the Thunderdome where the bad boys roam. They had the reason they called it the Thunderdome, Pontiac was originally built as a boys' reformatory back in the 1800s sometime.
Really?
Yeah, and then they added on to it over the years. But it is just like what I would imagine prison to be as a kid. You walk in, everything's gray. You've got 5 tiers up. Just an old. You still had to carry the old Adams Folgers keys. You know what those are? The great big keys that they turn to unlock.
I've seen them in movies.
Yeah, that was we were still using them then.
Wow.
And
So this stuff, it never really got a facelift.
No,
It was still old school mechanisms.
Yep, you had to have to go to each end of the gallery and roll the brakes for each individual cell. That would, because there was a big long bar that ran literally the whole.
I've seen those in
length of the
movies.
wings.
Yeah.
That's where I started work with the corrections.
So you're like Alcatraz.
Yes, it was. Yep.
So how many inmates were in that, like where you worked at once, whatever the wing?
Shoot, Dom,
Is it a big one?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's big. And a lot of times we'd have to feed with raincoats on, because they couldn't come out of their cells, so.
Why the raincoats? I don't understand that.
Well, because these guys are the worst of the worst. They would try to throw piss or shit on you, or throw the food back on you, or they was not always, but at least one every time you went to feed them.
Every fucking day you're
every
taking
day.
lunch, you are expecting a pile of piss and shit that's been fermenting in a cell for blah blah blah
Mhm.
to come flying at you.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
And the disease and like that.
Yeah.
That's just so.
And that was another thing. We couldn't ask if they had anything. That was their HIPAA right.
Oh, medically.
Yeah. I'm like, well, I kind of need to know if this guy's got Hep C or.
Isn't it my right to know?
I would think, but they was protected in that regard for sure.
Wow, like a face shield or just a raincoat?
Oh, we would do both. Right? But see, they're the chuck holes, what they call the chuck holes.
yeah.
They would. That's where you would slide the tray in.
Okay.
To give them to them. So the face shield was not as important, I guess.
Okay.
Because it was, but the raincoats were, because they could just throw it right back on you. But to be able to get their arm out and throw it, was hard for them to do that.
Yeah. But even
So-
as an officer who treated them all fairly and with respect and stuff, they don't look at you as Officer Norval. You are an officer.
Yeah, I'm a green shirt. That was up in Pontiac. That was where most of the bad shit happened, as far as the assault like that. You didn't have it so much down at the other facility that I went to. These guys have 23 hours a day to think of different ways to mess with you, or you know what I mean?
Ugh.
Because they were allowed 1 hour of
Wreck or whatever.
wreck a day, and the rest of the time they're in segregation.
Do you believe, in your experience, that they say that you're a caged animal? Like in a lot of situations, does it make it a lot worse on them?
Absolutely, I believe that 100%.
I
mean,
can't imagine.
Could you? Yeah, exactly.
I
And I
cannot.
I can't either. That 1 time out of the 1 hour out of the day that you get to go out and get some sun on your face, or
Maybe. Right.
yeah, or whatever. So it's they just it is like being caged up.
I mean, I just think that the quiet time, I don't like it. I'm less comfortable when it's real quiet sometimes. Like I need like my earbuds in or whatever, and like listening to podcasts. I can't imagine in a little bitty cell, and then you're with another guy and he's like farting and his fucking feet stink and he doesn't like to brush his teeth. You know what I mean? Like all those little things that I guess you just have to adjust to, because you ain't going nowhere.
Right. Well, the seg, you're by yourself. If you're in segregation, you're by yourself.
Right.
If you're in PC, then you might have a cellmate or whatever. But those guys that are in segregation, you watch. I was there long enough to watch the decline of the mind go.
Really?
Yeah.
He comes in kind of chipper and just slowly.
You see it. I mean, I've seen him to the point where everything was taken from him. There was no clothes, no property, no nothing, and they would be they would take toilet paper and lay it down on the steel because they didn't have a mattress. I
Right.
got to take them from them too, and they would just lay to try to get a barrier between their skin and cold steel.
Cold steel.
That's all they had.
Wow.
Yeah, it's hard to it was hard to watch.
Yeah, I guess so.
You know.
See, I'm like, yeah, I've got that caring bone in me sometimes to
Yeah.
a fault, but it's like,
Yeah.
does he deserve this? And maybe sometimes you fucking deserve worse. But
Okay, but I agree with that 100%. But not for the length of time, because you will. I don't care how strong mentally you are, you're going to lose the battle.
You'll break.
You'll break.
easy. I
You're
mean,
gonna break.
people break. There's certain methods you can use to break somebody real quick, and
Right.
it's like. But do some people, would they rather fuck up and go to seg because at least I'm by myself?
Oh yeah, that happens, and they'll pick infraction, because you write tickets, and as a correctional officer, you write tickets to the inmates like cops do.
Sure, speeding.
For speeding or whatever, just whatever infractions are, and then of course that ticket you write up goes to the board. I worked there for the corrections almost 8 years. I probably wrote 3 tickets.
Did they not like that about you, that your numbers were low? Like,
No, they don't do that. But that was also definitely something that would have hindered me from advancement.
sure,
You know what I'm saying?
but you didn't think it was right.
No, because there's other ways. You have people out there that can't empathize with anybody,
Sure.
and I kind of looked at it like, man, some of these guys are in here for some horrible crimes, but there's also guys in here for the same shit that I did,
Right.
that I didn't get caught at.
Right.
So, if you can't empathize with that individual, then I got to question you.
Yeah, for
know,
sure. I'm
so-
with you.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty tough. So is the suicide rate up in SEG? Well, I guess they don't have much to kind of hang themselves with.
Yep. I've, out of all the years that I was there, I only seen one death,
Really?
and that was on death row. But there was a guy by the name of Willie, I don't remember the last name, and he was right at the start of my wing, and I would wake him up every morning. Usually me rolling the brakes would wake him up, and I'd be like, hey, Willie, it's time for breakfast or whatever, and he'd, a lot of the people on death row were a lot more compliant than the people that had, that could get out of their cells, like the MSU unit. Like Pontiac also had an MSU, medium security unit,
Okay.
and those were the guys that was kind of a new facility, but those were also the workers that came in there to keep
Mopping
sweep,
floors.
mop
Yeah,
floor,
right, right.
whatever
Right.
they did. But this particular morning, Willie didn't get up, so I hollered at him a couple more times, like, hey, man, it's time to get up. And he had just had a heart attack and died while he was asleep.
Wow.
And, only thing I can think is, like, well, he beat the system.
You were gonna go one way or another.
Right.
Might as well be on your own fucking terms.
Right. And it was, he didn't kill himself. He just laid down and went to sleep and didn't
Wow.
wake up.
I guess to me that's again, depending on the crime,
Mm-hmm.
you did, like you said, beat the system a little bit.
Absolutely did. And whenever I was in, are you familiar with the Death Row 10?
No.
There was 10 inmates that was on death row. You can look it up on, YouTube, or you can Google it or whatever.
Yeah.
And there was 10 inmates that were released off of death row shortly after I was working there, or shortly after, maybe, or right around the same time that I went to work at Pontiac, and that was DNA.
Oh yeah.
Had
Advanced.
advanced to the point where they had 10 people that were innocent
About to die.
and that were on death row.
Wow. Going back to that ticket thing real quick, and then we're gonna go to death row for sure, because that's kind of like, well, I'm fascinated. again, my sister was telling me yesterday, she's in line for lunch, gets to make a call. I said, "Oh, what's up? What's for lunch?" Chicken patty. I'm like, "Oh, okay." And she said a chicken patty and cabbage. I said, "Is a chicken patty kind of like at school?" She was like, "Yeah, pretty much. It's just a fucking chicken patty." I said, "But the cabbage, you can keep that shit. I'm not eating it." And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, "It's really weird, but," and she knows she's being recorded. I know she's being recorded. My sister's kind of a street person, so she knows the way things work. But she said, yeah, that like a lot of people like to keep it, and somehow they turn it into chow mein. I guess if the cabbage gets to a point, it can almost give you the same kind of crunch or snap as one of them little chow mein noodles. I have no idea. But I said, I know we're being recorded, so we can't talk about specifics, but like, can't you get in trouble for that? And she was like, yeah. And I'm like, but it's worth it. She was like, I guess, man. But I said, so what happens? You go to the hole? And she was like, yeah, you get written a ticket, and then you do like whatever that time in the hole is. And I'm like, fuck. She goes on to say, when they get a cornmeal muffin, they get a little pad of butter with it. I forgot what she was saying, but the inmates will take it, excuse me, back to their cell, and they like to make something else other than it's a cornmeal muffin with fucking butter just isn't good enough. So they take it back to their cell and cook, or, if we have 5 of them now, we can make a cake and then, or with some other shit, and then we could share. But my sister was saying, she's like, I just don't see how that's worth it. Now she's doing it's like 8 or 9 months or something. So she's on the level of like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
But
short timer.
Yeah, right. But she's just like, they get sent to the hole for the silliest shit. And I'm just like, stop, Her cellmate is a Korean lady, mid-40s or something, right? She was pulling an insurance fraud scam and burnt down her nail salon.
Okay.
Bummer. It's illegal. You can't do that. The kicker to that is 2 firefighters go in to do their job. The building collapses and kills them.
Oh.
So she's doing 78 years. And my sister's like, Dom, not that I go to many nail salons, but I understand what happens in a nail salon. She's like, she's just like this sweet little lady. This goes back to just like not everybody in there is a serial killer who's cut kids' heads off and shit. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so it's like, and I was talking to Chase about it yesterday at work, like that one little decision, right? Like whether it's drinking and driving, you hurt somebody or yourself, like that one little decision. So she thought to herself, okay, if I burn down this salon, insurance is going to pay me X. Never thought, hopefully 2 firefighters go in the building and it collapses and fucking kills them.
Absolutely.
So it's like when you do the pros and cons, obviously there was a situation that she needed to come up on some money, whatever the fucking story.
Failed business, maybe.
Right. Yeah. Nobody was showing up. Well, I can't take a loss on this $300,000 loan. If I get back half, I've made a little bit, but whatever the fucking thing is. But like that one split decision, you could have said to yourself, is the juice worth the squeeze, right? Because for insurance fraud, you get 4 years. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what it is either, but
let's call it 4.
It's not 78.
No, let's call it 4, and then with good time, blah, blah, blah.
2.5 and you're out.
Maybe, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, was that juice worth the squeeze? Depending on your situation, right? You could almost argue that logically, like, okay, if I don't hurt anybody, if I don't get caught, I break even, I start a new salon somewhere else where my cousin lives in California, But it's like,
or just get out from underneath the weight of the debt.
Right. But you never had a plan. I'm 100% convinced this person most people didn't have a plan on 2 fucking heroes, innocent firefighters who have families and fucking everything else go in there and the building collapses. Yeah. Well, you fucking builders, you built this building shitty, and it's like, no, it's not the deal.
No.
You killed people.
Right.
You didn't shoot them with a gun in the head, but you fucking
It was your act that drew them there to begin with, for sure.
2 American heroes died because of your insurance scam. if you could take it back, would you? Absolutely.
Sure.
But-
Most would on anything they got
All
caught
kinds
doing.
of shit, right?
Sure.
But it's like that one little fucking decision we make sometimes, man. It can land you in a
Yeah.
place
Yep.
like the Thunderdome where the
Yep.
people fucking throw piss and shit at you.
Yep.
And you're just like, I went to see my dad one time. And when we were sitting in the little place where you can have family, whatever, I was looking around. I was more interested in other people. I know what my dad did. I know he deserved to be there. He deserved to be there and in different and worse places. He deserved to be in Pontiac for a whole lot longer had he gotten caught for some of the shit he did. The old man was an outlaw motorcycle club guy, drug runner, prostitute. I mean, like hardcore fucking dude.
Yeah.
And so I'm way more interested in everybody else sitting there than him. I didn't know him that well anyway, so I'm just kind of looking around and I'm like, hey, what? Like, I see this dude and it's like, I know that guy from high school. I know, just like we were talking about with the females in the correctional, I know who that guy is.
Right.
That guy's only fucking 4 years older than me. So I'm like, what did he do? Some kind of fucking computer thing, I have a white collar shit.
Sure.
And it's like, hopefully, if you're that white collar criminal and you go to that diagnostic place, they do not see fit that you go to a place like Pontiac.
Oh no, it'd be proper placement.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I say they didn't. I don't know. I would imagine every state has a Pontiac.
I'm sure.
That you're like, look, we just can't let these guys out with the general population,
right?
Because they're just proving that they're not going to be trusted.
Yeah.
So I would imagine. I don't know what it is in Missouri or other states,
right?
But I do know that Illinois was Pontiac.
That white collar dude. And most people, I've been to, I've seen some shit in my life, aren't ready to go to that den of fucking wolves. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And it's like you can put yourself in a real tricky situation by some Bitcoin scam or whatever your thing is,
Absolutely. I think the way that goes, of course, the judges, they see, there's no rap sheet here. There's only this.
Yeah.
So they're probably not going to send him to, and they also take into consideration, does this guy know anybody in this facility? Does he know anybody in that facility? So, that might be wanting to harm him or something.
Yeah.
So that they definitely place them accordingly. I
I'm
believe,
sure. From what I've heard, Moberly is kind of not a country club. It's still prison, but I think it's very low security.
Minimum.
I'm sure minimum or medium or so. Well, the old man was in there with a murderer.
Yeah.
So it's like, of course, but he's not the same kind of murderer as the dude in Pontiac.
Right.
He was walking down the hallway one time, whatever it's called. And he did tell me that he was with the Aryan Brotherhood there. From what he said and what I've always heard, it's something that's pretty mandatory to stay with your own. And he said his line was walking one way, at a buddy, his brother, his behind him. There's another line of guys walking the other way, and he just felt like a sharp pain kind of in his side. It was quick. And it wasn't like it'd be different than getting punched in the eye. What happened. You saw that almost come, blah, blah, blah. But he said he just felt like a pressure almost.
This was your dad?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
He goes, "Yeah, what the fuck, man?" And his buddy behind him was like, "Keep walking. I got it. I know who he is. Like, just keep walking." And they got back to his cell, and he ended up getting stabbed. And so I don't know how all of it works, but obviously he had to go to medical, and
sure,
he ended up getting hepatitis from it. So they said that probably the shank was dipped in shit, and I've heard that
they were attempting to make sure he got an infection, and
very much so. Yeah,
absolutely.
And it worked. So, you don't go tell who it was, but he said that it was, they made it right and stuff like that, which I did go no further. I will confirm nor deny whatever happened.
Right.
My dad's fucking dead, but, it's a wild place, man. Prison has just got to be wild.
Ah, man. I can tell you about my first day in North House. Up in Pontiac. I walk in.
Wait a minute. Hold on one second. So this is the first real prison you go to, is this place?
This first one.
Your first day on the job is with these people who throw piss and shit at you and can't get along with other inmates.
Absolutely. That was my first introduction to being a correctional
Wow.
officer.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So I walk in, and you know what a D-loop is? Mounted to the wall. It's like a...
So you can put chains on it?
Yeah,
keep them,
or handcuff or
cuffs,
whatever,
right.
you know. So I walk in there, and there's a guy, butt naked, cuffed up in the back to this D-loop, yelling he was going to kill me and going to kill my kids, my family, and this and that, directly at me. Never even seen this inmate before. And the reason that he was D-looped or cuffed to the D-loop is he had shoved sporks in his ass. Sporks, just like you think you would think.
Yeah. What's the plan for those? To make some kind of weapon, maybe? Or
No.
just to have?
No, they do that because Pontiac's and all segregation unit, that's the only way that they can get any kind of female interaction.
Really?
To go to medical, to get a woman's hands
close
to touch them. I've seen guys shove chicken bones down the head of their dick.
Oh.
And literally that's just 100. That's all it's for. Self-mutilation. I mean,
you know that, like it's a common known thing.
Absolutely. And it's the damnedest thing, because whenever you first get in there, right, you get off work, you talking to your buddy, you're like, you ain't gonna believe what fucking happened today.
Wow.
It's just fucking crazy. And then, 6 months go by, and another buddy of yours that you work with said, "Hey man, I heard such and such happened on your wing." Yeah. You didn't say nothing about it? It's amazing what you get used to, what becomes normal to you.
That's a very tough thing to become normal.
Absolutely.
Right?
Sure. It absolutely is. But you see so much strange, bizarre shit
that you would never think of.
And then you're like, yeah, it's not even worth mentioning anymore because I've seen the same shit happen multiple times.
And, bless the ladies who work in those infirmaries. I mean, they've got a tough fucking gig, and good on them, man. That's awesome for people like that. But without offending anyone, hopefully, I'm not trying to be offensive, but Carmen Electra's not the nurse who you're going to see.
You're right.
You're not going in there to see that doesn't matter after.
But Dom, if you've got, 35 years of segregation to do, does what she look like matter that much?
No.
You just want a female hand. It might be on your leg or whatever, and
see, that doesn't strike to me because obviously I don't know what that, you know what I mean?
Right. Because we haven't had the time. We have not had to have the time to think about it because, we was not put in that situation.
Are there female officers in a place like Pontiac?
Absolutely are, yeah.
I mean, I know that women are equal, and I get it. How helpless. As a fucking man, I do not want to go into this place you're talking about and serve people lunch. I am very much okay with the fact that these people can for sure overpower me, stuff like that. But like, as a fucking female dude.
Yeah, well, we would do shakedowns of the way this was built. There was like a walkway between the wings. Like you'd have one on one side, one on another, but you had a walkway. They had like the plumbing in it and shit like that.
Little catwalk.
And as soon as we would go in there, you would hear, the inmates knew what was happening, because if there was several different officers walking in the wing, they'd just start yelling, shake down, and you hear tink, 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 tink. They're just all throwing shanks out of their cells. So they would you're not going to catch it with me. You can't tell me that you knew that was in here. But we would walk down through there and we'd confiscate homemade shanks all the time. I mean, it was.
And even if you saw a hand throw something out of cell 4, you still can't. That's not admissible.
No.
Or is
Oh, well.
admissible to other word. That you can't use that against them.
You can't really do it unless you find it in their cell.
Really?
Because when you walk on, these inmates are watching.
Oh yeah.
So even if you don't have to get 3 or 4 cells down to where it starts to be confusing on which cell it came out of.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because everything looks the same.
Right.
So if and sometimes, the bars are wide enough that they don't have to stick their arm out. They can just throw it between it.
Like a dart.
Like a dart, just get it out of their cell. But, we would try to do that once a month or so just to try to keep the contraband down.
Yeah. Well, let them give it up before we got to go in there and
right.
take a chance.
Yep.
And I think, and this is coming from just a guy, when you've walked down the aisle of a Target before, you can smell a lady, whether it's hair products or perfume, whatever it is.
Sure.
I'm guessing after 15 years, like that, that's got to drive those dudes nuts.
Oh,
which the female must even female fucking deodorant smells like a female.
Yeah. Everybody pretty much watched each other's back, because you have a captain and a sergeant and a lieutenant and everything to each house. So a lot of times I'm not trying to be offensive here either, but they would put the women in situations or job posts that was kept them out of the way, or not out of the way, but away from potential harm,
direct contact.
They may put them in a tower,
right,
or something like that, or because you're absolutely right,
dude.
A girl, if a girl walks by me right now and she just washed her hair, I can smell that shit.
Fucking right. And it's got nothing to do with perversion or anything like that.
But it's a girl smell.
It's a sense.
Right. And it's the same way with these inmates that's been locked up for.
All right, but now on the other hand of the female inmates intriguing male corrections officers, does that happen on the flip side of that too?
You mean like female inmates?
Female officers.
Oh, absolutely. There was absolutely female officers there that thrived on that attention.
I mean, every dude in there would cut off his fucking finger.
Yep. Absolutely.
And some of them are like jacked and good looking dude. Just because you're a convict doesn't mean you're some piece of shit, ugly fucking guy.
Absolutely.
So it's like, you've got the pick of the litter and again, you control the whole situation. But was there ever a time that you can recall that like a female officer would end up pregnant from an inmate?
Absolutely did.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, it happened more than you.
Really?
Yeah. More than you think.
Do you think the hope, and obviously you can't really speak on it unless you know them, was the hope that like they would get out and have this relationship and their dad would come raise the kid? I mean, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah. That was it.
Because on the flip side of it, a male needs extra toothpaste or extra this or extra that too.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a crazy world.
I actually knew a captain that got involved with an inmate been in the system a long time, had high ranking.
The inmate or the captain?
The captain.
Okay.
The captain was high ranking guy. But, once they started their deal, he quit. He resigned.
Was she getting out soon?
She was getting out within like 3 or 4 months. Or
maybe.
Maybe.
Unless she fucked up.
Yeah, but he resigned from it.
Would you have any way of knowing if that ended up working out? Like,
no clue. The hell, that was been 20 some odd years ago.
Wow.
So, yeah.
To give it all up.
Yes. For a piece of ass. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, and hey, look, man, she could have gotten out and straightened her shit up and been fine, but
absolutely.
But that's your career too.
And I don't know what she was in for.
I hear you. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah, right. It could have been, like I said earlier, a lot of, some of these guys are in for the same shit that I was doing too back at one point in time.
Yeah.
Just didn't get caught at whatever.
Yeah.
And they did. So,
yeah.
Just because you're an inmate does not make you a bad person. That's absolutely.
I don't believe so either.
Right.
I mean, this thing could go. Just the stories have got to be endless. Okay, is Pontiac where death row was?
Yes.
How many years did you do on death row?
I was in Pontiac for a little over 2 years, so I was on death row for about a year, and then I transferred, which is like when you transfer within the facility, it's like a position comes open, then you bid on that position.
Yeah,
Then if you're, depending on the shift, because it breaks down completely like that.
of course.
And then that was a union job, so if you had the most seniority, then and you put in for it and you was the highest one, and that's what you went to.
Yeah.
So I worked on death row for about a year.
Why did you put in for a death row job? Like, is that just?
Oh, I didn't. They placed me there.
Did-
I was the new guy. So yeah, it was I was just placed on death row.
Is that something you would not have wanted to do? Like, okay, you're working there. It's wild enough that your first day, this dude's shoving shit up his ass and wanting to kill you and your family. That's a whole thing. But like, did you hear stories about death row that would make you not want to go there or anything?
Oh, geez. Yeah, that was I made the mistake of looking up an inmate while I was on death row. That was one of them that was on my wing that I took care of. And, because these guys are cuffed up just to go 13 feet or 30 feet or whatever down to the shower. I mean, they're leg irons, belly chains, everything.
2 officers, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that's
Mandatory shit.
yeah, because these guys are bad. So I made the mistake whenever I had first gotten there and looked up an inmate, and I read the case file on him, and that was, I swore I will not read another one.
What was it?
Because the horror that this guy did is you cannot possibly look at the dude the same way again.
Really?
You just can't. This guy was a friend of the family, I guess, at some point in time. Now, this would have been back in 70s.
Okay.
Probably. And this couple had this like 9-year-old girl.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to do something. They didn't, they had to go away and do something for a day or two or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But this was supposedly a family friend of them. He said, "Hey, can you watch your kid? We're only going to be gone." I don't know if it was what got them out of the house.
Whatever, yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, okay, no problem. Sure, I can do that." And whenever they came back, he had hung her up on a tree limb that went over the driveway and disemboweled her and left her to hang there until that's the first thing they saw whenever they pulled back into their driveway was their daughter in that condition.
Field dressed like a fucking animal.
Just ripped from her chest cavity clear down. And he didn't even run from it. He was still in the house.
Is that mental health, you think?
Has to be, I would think.
I mean, that was a stupid fucking question because, you and I couldn't think of, I mean, that's just, that's not even possible in the normal, I have mental health problems, but they ain't fucking like that,
Yeah. And, every time I'd go to get this guy out of the cell for whatever reason, that's the image of that. That, of course, you can make worse images in your head not being able to see it than actually seeing it.
I don't know if you can make that worse, right?
Right.
A 9-year-old innocent child. That was I was like, okay, I don't want to hear, and I heard other stories, like other officers would read cases and like, well, this guy cut a baby out of a pregnant woman's belly, and just, I was like, Lord, I don't want to know anymore. Wow. They're not in here for writing bad checks. Yeah.
That's all I need to know.
Yeah. Wow. Do you, I mean, is there a conversation you have with that guy? Like,
no, I didn't converse with any of those guys really on death row. I mean, besides, hey, it's
time for shower, whatever.
Time to wake up. It's time to shower. It's rec time. Do you want it? You'd offer it to them. Some of them wouldn't even go out, to the pods out on on the
Yeah. What's
yard.
the point of trying to enjoy anything? Death's coming to all of us anyway, but like that's a very different.
Yeah, for sure. But a lot of the inmates had more inmates on death row had more perks than some of the guys that was in general pop.
Yeah. I want to go back to that, but like that's a moral dilemma for me, right? Because I hope I would be the type of officer you were and not judge these people. And I mean, of course, like you said, you wish you would have never fucking read that file, but like, I'm not sure how fair I could be to a person who is capable. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not for me to say like, oh, fuck that dude. I'm just saying like in general, like knowing that you're in arm's distance away from a human being that can do that to a child, like
arm's distance, she had physical contact
right.
with them.
It would cross my mind a lot, you know, that like,
of course.
Okay. Real quick. What was the method of death row? Was that lethal injection?
It was, but it wasn't done at Pontiac.
Well, the reason I asked that question, that's not sufficient for a person for a human like that, you know? For you just to go fucking take a nap isn't good enough. I believe you should be fucking disemboweled in front of your kids. No, not your kids, because that's now affecting children. Something terrible should happen to you.
And Dom, this guy looked like he might sell insurance.
Really?
Yeah, because you think you think they're monsters. They are monsters, but they're not monsters like I had them pictured as being just this overwhelmingly large, until you're exposed to they're just people. But yeah, this guy absolutely looked like he should be selling insurance someplace. He did not look like he was capable of the shit that he did. But you can't see inside their mind,
right?
On what kind of demented shit's going on.
And it's almost like if you could, there should be studies done, and sometimes those guys will do the interviews and all that, and it's like, it's not interesting, it's fucking sickening. But what happened that day? You and Violet were watching TV, and you made her some chicken nuggets, and then at what point, and why?
Yeah.
And like, where did that come from? In a tree in their driveway? Like, it's all
okay. To me, after I read it, I was like, it's one thing to kill somebody,
of course,
but this guy absolutely made a display to make sure that it would affect her parents to the maximum.
I mean, can you fucking even imagine you having kids? Like, you know what I mean? Well, and going back to what you said, there's this totem pole or pillar of, it's one thing to hurt someone. It's one thing to accidentally kill someone. It's one thing to kill someone. It's one thing to kill two people and five and da-da-da-da. A child, yes, is like way fucking different than a regular murder. It's not right or wrong.
Or elderly, child and the elderly. Those are the ones you don't fuck with, right? In my opinion.
But then even a bullet point or another lane or whatever the fuck column of hurting a child is something like that,
Oh, that's
max.
That's a level of evil that doesn't get higher than that, I don't think.
How do humans get there? It's not for you and us to decide. It's just an interesting question. Like,
it is.
You get in a bar fight. It's like, oh, I was fucking drunk and got in a fight. This asshole touched my old lady's butt or whatever the fucking thing is. But like, how do you even imagine doing something so just heinous? That's wild, man.
Yeah. I couldn't, most people, we're all capable of murder.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No question.
What, my brain would never work to that level.
Right.
That's the thing. If somebody harmed me or my family or something like that,
right,
was going to, yeah, I could shoot him like I was killing a rabid dog.
Of course.
That would be no problem.
Yeah.
But this guy sat and thought, well, how can I make this the most horrific thing?
Yeah.
That
ever
that could be possible. Yeah.
And what is there? Is this a thing where, again, just conversation? You and I can't come up with these answers, but like, was there a voice in his head telling him to do like how? I mean, I can't. That's some shit you can't even imagine.
Sure.
So okay, that'll piss me off. The guys on death row had more, not freedom, but like you were saying, jobs and stuff.
Oh, well, they have more amenities than most in general pop ed. Like, because you have advocacy groups that are all about, no doing away with death row altogether. So they would, they had like paints and easels and different kinds of games that wasn't normally allowed in general population, and like I say, for the most part, you never had any trouble out of those guys that were on death row until, if their date started to creep up, their DOE, then they would do something small to catch an assault just so it would reset the system.
Yeah, kind of an appeal.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Or like, oh, I caught a case. You can't off me on this date.
The 15th ain't happening.
Right.
When it's inevitable anyway.
Yeah.
It's just to push it back 6 months. And,
right.
If you and I knew that the 15th was our day, I don't know, you might do something to
sure.
extend that even though you're on death row and you got a fucking easel with paint.
Right.
It's still something.
Well, and they would do this, I don't know exactly how far out because where they actually did the executing, and I don't know, hell, I have no idea when was the last one they was even done, but it was done at a TAMS facility, was the name of the facility in Illinois, and it was down south. So I would thought, a month out maybe, well, we transfer this guy to TAMS, and that's where he'll stay until
he dies.
So, but the inmates knew, whenever it was coming up close. But but for the most part, those guys that were on death row, they didn't give you any troubles whatsoever. They wanted to do their time as peacefully as possible, for sure.
Yeah. You said that too about, and I think you were talking about like general population stuff, but for the most part, you were given the older guys who had more time, those porter type jobs, than the younger kids coming in.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
What's up with that?
Well, because the older guys that had the time to do, they want that porter job because it gets them out of the cell more than it does everybody else, because they get to get out and clean and do. And you also got to watch those guys because they're passing contraband from cell to cell, and
you're pretty aware of that.
They're doing fishing. Yeah, they're fishing. And so like, and as they would, well, the young guys had 15 months, year, 2 years, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They're still in there cocky as shit and trying to impress the other inmates, like, yeah, I'm a badass and this and that.
Street cred.
So, they're mouthy to the officers for the most part, and fuck you, punk,
right.
That kind of shit. And the guys that was in there for armed robbery and murder and stuff, and that had a lot of time to do, I'm like, yeah, come on, that's who I would hire.
Wow.
Because they want to do their time easy if they can.
Yeah.
So
even though and you seem, and I'm sure you were different when you were younger, like we all were, but like a very just kind of even keeled guy, if I had to describe your, state of being. Even knowing that they're trying to get a rise out of you or they're just punk kids or whatever, like, isn't that still hard to not react to?
Yeah. There was a couple times where fight would break out, and that was a 10-10 was what they called it on the radio.
Okay.
Like,
that's a fight.
That's a fight.
Okay.
And me and this other officer just happened to be on the walks that time. It was shortly after dinner time. There was inmates in the gallery that was cleaning up and shit. And I walk by and look, and I see these guys are just going at it, So I called the 10-10 on the radio. Me and my buddy go in there, and we get it broke up, and we get them cuffed up. And, adrenaline's high, because you're in there. And
you're
it's
a fight.
It's a fight. But after we get these two going, well, I got a hold of one, and we're walking them back to segregation. And my buddy's sitting there, and he's still jerking on the handcuffs and shit because he's all fucking amped up. I mean, I said, "Hey, bud, they're cuffed up. It's, dial it back.
Yeah.
This shit's over with.
Yeah.
We're taking them to seg." And then after he calmed down, he made a comment to me, and he's like, "Man, I don't know how you do it. I don't." He said, "I would have beat the shit out of that guy," and I'm like, "That's not what we're here. That's not what we're here for."
Yeah.
They're cuffed, bud. They're cuffed. They're not hurting each other anymore, and they can't hurt us.
Well, and again, that's a good way to get fucked up next time when you're not thinking it, because that
Correct.
dude's not gonna forget.
No,
He will not be forgetting that he got beat up while
as
he was
handcuffed.
Yeah,
Right.
that's some punk shit to do.
That's some punk shit.
Anyway.
To do. Right.
Wow. So you okay. Has there ever been? So say this punk kid is just a mouthy motherfucker and he's the toughest thing in the world and this and that, and he is on the wrong side of another inmate who he pissed off or stole their crackers or this or that. And maybe maybe an officer, not you, would walk a little slower to break that up because maybe he deserves exactly what he is getting.
I don't know that I've ever.
Well, I guess you might not know the situation all the time.
Right.
Okay.
But I will tell you, my demeanor has not always been, or it's not that all the time. Whenever I was working up in Pontiac, I was telling you that they had to, anytime they left the cell, they had to be in leg irons and belly chains.
Yeah.
Right. So one of the games that they would like to do is after they would get in there and they'd back up to the chuck hole.
Right.
You get the handcuffs, then they'd dart to the back of the cell. Come get these fucking belly chains, punk. Come on in here, motherfucker. That type of thing, And
now that their hands are free.
right now that their hands are free.
Okay.
So, and it was so dumb on their part because if they think I'm just going to open up that door and go in and get it, no, whenever I come in, we're going to show you why you don't do that.
There's going to be 4 of us.
There's going to be 4 or 5 of us.
Or whatever.
Yeah. There's going to be a TAC team come in. That's what we're doing. So he was doing that, calling me names. Come on in here, bitch. You big motherfucker. You think you're tough, blah, 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 that type of thing. I'm like, I just shut the check hole up. I said, I'll be back in a minute. And there was a guy, last name was Eustace. Dommy made me look like a little dude.
Yeah.
He was just an absolute monster. And we came in, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, me, and Eustace. We popped it open, and when we got done with this guy, we had him hog-tied in the back. We put the cuffs on him backwards, and you could just reach down and carry him out like a suitcase.
Yeah.
But before then, I was up there where they was trying to get the cuffs on him, and he was pursing his lips up like he was trying to spit on me. And every time he did, I just dig my knee into his neck a little harder.
Sure.
And the sergeant, after we got him, he was trying to reprimand me. He's like, you had a little excessive use of force there, didn't you? I said, well, all due respect, Sarge, he wasn't trying to spit on you.
Yeah, I don't think so.
He was trying to spit on me.
Right.
I said, I don't know what this dude's got.
Yeah, next time we can switch positions and you can come be right there by his face.
And the lieutenant, after I said that, started laughing. He says, he's right. You weren't up there by his face.
Good point.
So.
Write me up, I guess.
Yeah,
but
and he didn't because, but that sergeant didn't like me from that point forward because he got outranked by lieutenant saying, yeah, he's fucking right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Well, sometimes you're not always right.
Yeah.
Right. Sarge.
Right.
Did any, I think you might have answered this already, but did any of the death row inmates when you were on there leave to go die?
Not to my knowledge.
So it wasn't like Charlie was in that cell and then one day he's gone and you found out like he went up.
I mean, even to have an execution, like I said, I don't even know when the last one was. I mean,
why aren't they just getting rid of these motherfuckers? What are we keeping them around for? No, I mean, it sounds cruel, but.
Yeah. Well, we don't run through them like Texas does.
What, Texas? That's real?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Texas, they put in an express lane. And I'm not sure that they don't have a right, I think that you should have a certain amount of appeals, and if you exhaust all those and they're like, no, you did this. This is your DNA.
You're guilty.
You're guilty. Get them out. because for each inmate, I know this was
Oh, here we go.
for each inmate, it costs like $21,000 per inmate. That was in Illinois, and that was back in the 90s and early 2000s.
And that's a year.
That's per year per inmate.
Medical, food, clothing,
Everything.
hygiene, da 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 da.
21 grand a year per inmate. So I'm like, yeah, you know what?
And what's that shot cost that they give them? You know, nothing. 50 cents at a buck.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what that is? What the concoction is for the lethal?
I do not know.
Are they still doing that in Texas, or do they still have the chair?
I don't know.
I don't think anybody has a chair anymore. That's fucking wild.
Yeah. I know that one of the states, I remember reading this recently, and I can't recall what state that had the chair up to like 10 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Now that's a fucking way to go.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yep.
Growing up, this is not famous story, but like it was a big deal, especially because it involved friends of mine and that I went to school with. The dad hires a hitman to kill the mom. Dad and hitman get caught. I think the dad, it might have just been the hitman. Anyway, but my friends were given the option to go watch him die.
Wow.
Yeah. And this was 90s, so it was not on film, but they like the news and shit, because it was such a big case.
Right.
Big family, and like it was fucked up. Of course it was fucked up. But the news was like there when it was, they're outside and shit, but like my friend, my age, went in and watched this thing. And I remember I never talked to my friend about it, but as a young teenager, like I remember thinking like, what would I do in that situation?
Whether you would go or whether you wouldn't.
Right. Now, no one's taken my mom from me in that manner, so I can't answer that question, of course, but it's like, it was a tough thing to think that like, boy, that friend of mine's got to know that for the rest of he or she's
Forever.
life.
Yeah.
But it's like, did that bring you closure? Your mom's still not here. I mean, it just fucking sucks either way.
Obviously I can't say for sure, but because I haven't never been put in that situation, but I think I know my own head well enough. I wouldn't want to be there. I wouldn't want to go.
No.
Mm-mm.
I just don't think it'd be good enough for me. If someone killed my mom, them laying down on a table and going to sleep, and like some priest coming in and praying on him, and she's like, well, wait a minute now. Why are we trying to make this motherfucker out to be somebody, that deserves this or that? Fuck that. Hit him in the head with something heavy.
Right.
Let it ride, you know?
Yeah, it's I guess once he's dead, but the demented part of me thinks the same way you do a little bit, as far as like just going to sleep. That's how you're going to kill him.
Your victim didn't get to go that easy.
Your victim didn't get to go that easy.
So why are we making it easier on you?
Right.
Like when Jeffrey Dahmer, when they killed him, I think they shoved a broomstick up his. I mean, they fucking beat his head off of a toilet.
Oh yeah.
They said it was a fucking massacre when they got him. I don't have a problem with it.
I'm like, well, and I think they knew that that's what was going to happen.
Right, you have
him.
to.
I mean, because they had him in protective custody.
Yeah.
And then, how long after he hit General Pop did this happen? Not very long. Those inmates are just waiting.
Did he get sent to General Pop?
That's how it happened.
Oh, I figured just because I was going to say.
Him and dude were on a cleaning detail.
Really?
Yeah. And the other guy that was within a cleaning detail with him, he's the one that killed him.
Good on him.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, even in general population, even with the rapist and the pedophiles, the fucking worst of the worst, there's still a code there, I'm sure. Like as far as if you, I don't know how it gets much more heinous than pedophiles. I don't.
That's the worst in my opinion.
Right, but I'm
guessing
guessing
they should get more time than murders. That's just me.
Yeah, I don't understand that at all.
I don't get it either.
Because I'm guessing if that hit close to home, the sentence might be a little heavier. Not his family specifically, but anyway, that's pretty wild. So it cost 21 grand roughly a year, 20 years ago,
right,
to keep an inmate.
Yep.
What is this is just I'm interested in all the little things that no one cares about. What is the food like? Where does that like is it because you have to see the food. I mean, is it like
Dom, it's not near as bad as what you think it is.
really
Oh no,
kind of like high school lunch?
kind of
food?
like. And I would go back here. I'd go back and talk to the cooks. And of course that's the most dangerous place in the
Yeah.
facility because they've got knives and they're cutting and they're they check it out and things. But I'd really go back there. I'm like, hey, what are you guys eating today? What do you mean? This is what we got. I'm like,
No.
no, what are you guys eating today?
Yeah.
And then they kind of grin. They said, I'm like, okay, when you get some of that,
Why
come,
they
come
would
holler at me.
they
Yeah, they're fixing their, they got the access to all the goods. They're going to fix it. You had another guy that oversaw them,
okay.
but he turned a blind eye a lot.
Sure. I
Ju-
mean, it's food.
It's food,
And the guys that have all the fucking big knives while I'm stuck in this kitchen with them,
Mhm.
I'd like them to be in a pretty good mood,
Yes.
if at all possible.
Yeah, you kind of want to stay on the good side of those guys.
Are the knives like got a wire hooked to the
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
so you're not just
it-
wheeling knives
No,
around?
but I mean, there's a shadow box like you would think of, or
Yeah.
at the end of every shift, it's all counted and
Yeah.
checked off and verified and all that stuff. But they're still transferring them. Whatever officer's in there is transferring that knife to whatever workstation that they're at.
Yeah.
If you're the only one back there and you got 15 guys working in the thing, they want that knife. They're going to get the knife. They're going to take it. They're going to get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the reason I say the inmates run the prison.
Sure.
For sure they do.
And you almost need them to in situations
Yes.
like that because is the state going to pay civilians to come in and cook? No.
No.
Right.
So, I mean, it's whenever I walked away from corrections, they thought, a lot of the guys were like, well, I cannot believe you're quitting this job. It was great pay. And, I say great pay, as good as you could find for the area that I was in.
Right.
And insurance and all that stuff. And I said, I think at that time had 7 years in. I said, I can't do 23 more years here, man.
No.
I can't do it.
7 years is long enough.
7 years was as long as, so whenever I walked away from it, that was absolutely the best thing I ever did. It was the worst job I ever had. Bar none. It was the worst job I ever had.
Oh, I don't have anything to say because I couldn't put in for the application. Like I know myself well enough to know I don't like driving. I don't like driving long distance. I get bored. I'm not going to be a truck driver. It's just not
Right.
for me. And I know that for a
Right,
fact.
right.
I didn't grow up in that area where blah, 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 but I just, I don't have the temperament. No
No.
way. I don't have the same temperament as you do. I no way. And just that feeling of fucking complete vulnerability, it makes me nervous sitting here talking to you about it 20 years later.
Well, yeah. And also, it's the, you at the end of the day, you never felt like you accomplished a goddamn thing.
Really?
Never. Like if you're a construction worker and you put up a wall.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you can go, yeah, I put that up today.
There's a wall.
There's a wall there.
Look, there's a wall.
Right, there's a wall. I did that. At the end of the day, whenever you walk, you don't ever have what's the word I'm looking for here?
Like sense of accomplishment.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
You
it's
didn't
like a
have
mailroom.
You didn't have anything.
Yeah.
None of that. You're just like, well, there was 8 hours of nothingness.
I'll never get that back.
And no appreciation.
Yeah.
No nothing. It was a horrible place and a horrible job.
Dude, I can't. I'm with you. I can't imagine. You well, before we started recording, you were telling me about how you circled into the what do you call it, gang identification, like group or team.
Yeah. Well, it's there was. You tried to keep certain gang members away from other gang members.
Look, we know that this is how this facility runs.
Right.
We
Right.
understand that there's Bloods, Crips, Latin Kings, White Power.
Right, all that in there.
So what we can try to do is minimize the contact space between.
Yep, that's right. And ultimately you can't. There's too many of them, so you're going to have
A little bit of crossover.
little bit of crossovers there.
But what you can't do is put a blood and a crip in one cell.
No,
You just won't do that.
no. But if you start having problems on wings, I would recognize it. Like, I'll just, for example, throw if it was a gangster disciple, and I knew, and this guy is giving me a particularly hard time, doesn't want to lock up whenever it's lockup time, mouthing this and that, I would absolutely find out who the chief was on that wing.
What's going on?
And I would go to him. I wouldn't go to the guy.
The GD, the guy who's running that. Okay.
Yeah, I would go whoever was running that wing, and I would knock. I'd tap on the cell door, and he's like, "Well, I'm CO Norval. What can I do for you?" I'm like, your boy down here and such. What's going on with him? Oh, what's he doing to you? I was, well, nothing to me particularly. He just doesn't want to abide by any rules and this and that. I apologize, CO Norval. You won't have any problems out of him ever again. And then maybe 2-3 days, dude walks by and he's got a fucking shiner on his eye, and he may cut you a dirty look, but he won't retaliate.
That's the end of it.
That's the end of it, because each one of those affiliations have their own thing going on inside the prison. You know what I mean?
For instance,
I can't say which gang or which faction or anything is doing certain things, but like one of them would be running food, stealing food from the gallery, taking it back, selling it for, smokes on the wing.
Yeah.
Or, you could smell them cooking food.
In the cell.
Yeah. Sure. And then some of them might be like, well, I'll get you a certain amount of things to make your hooch out of, your sugar and your juices and stuff like that.
Right.
And in turn, you get me, some drugs brought in.
Yeah.
So whenever there's different gangs that are doing that, and they're all working, I guess, kind of together to get their own shit.
Yeah.
Then they don't want any attention brought to them.
No.
So you got loudmouth over here that wants to spout off and not, lock up or do whatever.
Yeah.
He calls him in. It's just like you talking to a kid.
You're fucking with my money.
Hey, you motherfucker.
Yeah. Yeah. Organized crime being the same. They don't want, John Gotti was too flashy. That was the problem.
Right.
They all want to look like they're just homeless people in Cadillacs.
Absolutely. That's, and it's the same way. You're messing with my money, my time, how I'm going to do it. And whenever they encounter something like that, they take care of their own.
Yeah.
But like I say, I'm not going to argue with dipshit over here that's causing me the problems.
Right.
I'll find out who your dad is.
Yeah.
I'll go tell him.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is.
Wow. Yeah.
So.
And then, what is the leading cause of contraband, since you said that, getting into prisons? Is it visitations? Is it mail?
Well, mail is all gone through. So it
but like
officers.
I've seen before that they'll put like black tar heroin behind the stamp.
Oh, that could be. I know that
sometimes they'll get caught, of course. But.
Right. I would say visitations would be a big one. I'm sure through the mail some. The visitations, they're completely stripped out and going into the visitation and completely stripped out whenever they're done.
Right.
So.
But then how does it work? Swallow it, shit it out later, probably?
Something like that. And Don, there's also there's dirty officers just like there's dirty cops.
Yeah, but dude, if they have no currency to a free person, an inmate has very little to offer me that I can't get myself, excuse me, or that I don't already have.
Mm-hmm.
What can you, the Latin Kings or the Peckerwoods or whatever, what can you offer me as a corrections officer that I can't do on my? I'm leaving here in 2.5 hours. I'll go get my own fucking cheeseburger.
Right.
So what would be the incentive for an officer?
They may get something over on them.
Oh, okay. So I saw you do this. Okay.
They may get something over on them and like, hey, on such and such date, you did this or did that, and I seen what you did, and if you don't bring me in,
pack of smokes,
and then if you bring in the pack of smokes, then he's really fucking got you.
Yeah, because now
then he's like, okay, thanks for those smokes. By the way,
Every Friday.
every Friday we're going to do this. And then it just progresses
Wow.
like that.
So, like, do you remember what would one cigarette be worth?
I don't know what it would be worth. I know that most of them were rolls. They
Okay.
rolled their own, because if it was a cigarette that had a filter on it, that was called a Cadillac.
That was high dollar.
That was high dollar, because if that cigarette had a filter, well, that was a Cadillac smoke.
But back then, could they buy their own leaf tobacco and papers and shit?
They could for a while. They could get it through their commissary, but and I think maybe some of them still can. But I know they cut it off. Hell, while I was still in Pontiac, they got rid of it.
Oh, I bet that caused a fucking problem.
That was because that was one of the big deals. And like, you know what this is going to cause?
Yeah,
know,
are you sure?
Are you sure we're going to do it? But they did it. So.
But I guess it causes problems to have anyway, right? Because debt is a big deal.
For sure.
So if I give you something and you don't pay me back, I have to do what I have to do, or else I'm a punk.
Right.
Blah blah blah. So that causes its own set of problems. So it's like
prison law.
Right. So which one of these is, again, juice worth the squeeze? If we take these away from these guys, there's going to be a fucking problem for a while. And now we've got to worry about shit getting brought in, officers being involved, all of that.
Yeah. Yep. Over just some smokes. And, it's, wouldn't be worth it to me.
Right. Did I say on here, was that before we were talking, what my sister told me about the pinky nail? Was that before we were recording?
Before, I think, yeah.
So she was telling me the other day that, she didn't say specifically what, but let's just call it weed. A fingernail, if you look at your fingernail, people, while you're listening to this or driving or whatever you're doing, hopefully, if you look at your fingernail, that amount, there's no way it's anything more than weed. Because heroin costs less on the street, but harder to get and worth more. I don't know. That's weird. Anyway, the amount of your pinky fingernail is like $100 where she's at. $100. So what happens there? You have your parents or grandparents on the outside that are putting money on your books, and you pay back that $100 with 10 ramens,
whatever, to somebody else's commissary. They would have their parents put the money on
yours,
on mine.
Oh, why would the prison system allow them to do that? Like, don't they know that that's not, or is that not really regulated?
Yeah, well, they can't really. Well, they didn't back then. They, if there was somebody, if you was in prison, I could call and say, "Hey, I want to put $100 on Dom's books." Okay.
They don't. Are you?
No.
Are you family?
No.
Are you a relative?
Oh, there were some that had thousands of dollars on their books.
There's not like a cap. Like something's going on here.
Because they got they're getting paid too if they have a job.
Right.
They're getting paid piddly stuff. But
yeah.
Another thing with that though is if they have any kind of debt from like what are the court costs or anything, that's all going straight there first.
Right.
State's going to get their money.
Yeah. Absolutely.
One way or another.
My sister makes $50 a month.
Yep.
In the what's the infirmary?
Yeah.
She brings these older ladies juice and cleans and shit like that.
Right.
So 50. She's like, I'm one of the highest paid people here. I'm like, oh yeah, what are you making? She's $50 a month. I'm like, whoa.
Right.
Stop the press.
Yeah.
But she was telling me that a couple of the older ladies living in there, much like the guy with cancer, right? They're just older people. They're lifers. And I'm like, well, Nikki, you know what you got to do pretty much to get life. She's like, yeah. And I'm like, so just because they're old, kind of watch your shit,
Absolutely.
She might be a little old lady, but she's done it before. She might be able to do it again.
Goes back to what I was telling you about these guys that were on death row. I mean, there's guys on there that 5 foot nothing, 130 something pounds. But
I'll cut you up.
Will absolutely kill you.
I enjoy working out, mental health, physical health, all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have such a fucking time, like gaining weight, getting into shit. It's a lot of hard work. Now, some of these dudes, of course, have 15 years to put forward, but they have little to no. We're looking at my equipment now. Little to none of that shit.
Mm-hmm.
How is it that they do that? How are they so fucking jacked?
A lot of them, they go through the calisthenics things until they, like if they're in segregation, they do a lot of calisthenics inside their cell. Um, and, death row, those guys or people that was up in Pontiac, they only went out to the pods, and the only thing they could do was walk around. But if you get to other, like medium or medium max security, they got weight rooms.
Yeah, I think in the California prison system, or I've heard on TV, like they took away weight. Like we're talking like what's that fucking one out there? Pelican Bay and shit. Like they had to take free weights away. But they still have bars and you know shit you can do.
Oh, the free weights that they could sneak in there and absolutely bludgeon somebody with.
Oh my god.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they had weight rooms in Western.
But so like, but would the white dudes get it Monday, Wednesday?
Oh yeah, they had. I never did follow how they.
But they had it set up.
Oh sure. Yeah.
Other than that, though, let's just with the calisthenic, like, you'd be walking by doing your patrol every whatever it is. There would be guys just all day long. I mean, of course, you take breaks, but like,
out to the yard.
Well, or it just in their cell and seg. They would just be hitting push-ups and burpees and shit.
Absolutely. It would they would look like physical specimens.
Right.
I mean, it was literally just absolutely, 2% body fat or something. It was ridiculous how, and it's not just the physical. There is the talent that is locked up in prison is you couldn't believe it.
I can't. I've only heard stories.
I mean, there's another case in point on how another officer got hooked up is there was a artist that could do the pencil drawings, and he was so good and it was so lifelike that one of the officers brought in a picture of his kids and asked him to do one, and he did. He did it for him and gave it back to him, and he was like, that there in itself is an infraction. You cannot interact with inmates to that degree. You just can't.
Nor would you want anybody to have a picture of your children. All these people on fucking social media is nuts when they're minor children, you know, but.
Yeah, because you don't know, this guy may be the next Picasso or whatever, famous artist, but he also may be a sick bastard, and now he knows what your kids look like.
Right. And if you're close enough with him to be able to ask him to do this, there might have been a conversation about where you're from.
Mm-hmm.
He might know somebody in that town, another Latin king, Yeah. And then, hey, run by this dude's house, and just knock on the door, let his wife know we know who, you know what I mean?
Right.
And that could get you in a situation.
Yeah, there was a inmate, Henry Alleman. Do you know who this is?
No.
He was a Henry the Hitman out of Chicago.
Okay. Mob guy?
Yeah,
okay.
Mob guy. He was on my wing whenever I was working at Western. I could not ask for a better inmate to have on my wing.
Really?
Absolutely.
You know how many people he killed?
Don't know. There's a special on it. You can look it up.
Really?
Yeah, it's on A&E, and I'm sure you could YouTube just, if you was
Henry the Hitman.
Henry the Hitman.
Check him out.
Alleman.
Huh.
Is his name. And 5'1", 5'2", 130 pounds. But, it doesn't take it. But another guy I worked with was asking him, he's like, hey, he was get to the, you see these guys every day, you get to where you bullshit a little bit.
A little bit.
And this guy was just in general pop, I mean, he was out and about. And he said, hey, me and my wife's getting ready to have an anniversary. Can you recommend a restaurant up in Chicago? Because that's where he's from.
Yeah.
Well, this guy had his own restaurant. He had lots and lots and lots of money. He's like, hey, go, this is Henry talking, told him, go up to so-and-so, tell him Henry sent you. They'll take care of you. And as soon as he did, I said, Dave, you fucked up, bud.
Is that too much?
That's too much.
Is it?
Yeah. Because if he goes up there, and he knew he did, he knew he'd screwed up. He didn't take him up on it. You know what I'm saying? He didn't go up there to Henry's restaurant and say, hey, Henry sent me, that type of thing. Because that's a favor that's given from an inmate to an officer, and that's, strictly, but he, my buddy was like nervous about it. Do you think he's going to call up there? Do you think this? I said, I don't know what's going on. I would absolutely squelch the
Whole deal.
The whole deal, the talking about it, you know, can you do me a favor? This guy's a hit, man. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
For the right price, he'll kill you. He's already in here.
yeah.
He might not really need that much of a. I mean, it's not a moral dilemma with him at this point.
No, this guy would get on a motorcycle. You have a target. You have a little sawed-off gun. If you wait for you to hit a stop sign, he'd pull up, just boom, like that, just blow your head off, and just keep on going like it was nothing.
You know this from watching docs and stuff on him?
Yeah.
Wow.
And interviews with him.
Really?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And he was pretty cool, just guy that could kill you for money.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, that was just, you know, I don't think he really did things to people that weren't on his list. You know?
Yeah, right.
To me, it was just to
business.
Him, it was just his job. That's just what he did.
Wow.
So.
How fascinating, man.
Yep.
Well, I don't think we're done. I have to get a kid to lacrosse practice, but I think we could probably do a couple more days on this. But thank you so much for coming down and,
no problem,
and
man.
talking with me. That's awesome.
I enjoyed it, man.
Yeah, it was a good time. Did it get a little bit easier as you got going?
Yeah. Little jitters there at first.
At first?
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't tell. You rolled into it.
Yeah, it was, you know, worried about stammering and shit
I hear
like
you.
that, you know, that type of thing. But,
well, imagine doing this by yourself and trying to keep it going for an hour. It's like, I don't have any fucking thing to talk about. You know what I mean?
We killed an hour, didn't we?
We killed an hour and 56 minutes.
There we go. We did all right.
Yeah. Did you have anything on your paper you wanted to talk about, or was that just in case
I think we hit it, man.
Yeah, cool. Good deal.
Yeah, we did it.
Well, let's do it again.
I like it.
Thanks, buddy. Hey, everybody out there, thanks for checking me out again. If you could, you know, download and all that shit, send it to your buddies. I'd appreciate it. We will see you guys next time. Ben, this will be out. I got one coming for this Monday. This will be out next Monday. So we'll get it going as soon as we can.
Sounds good, man.
All right. Thanks for coming down, buddy. I appreciate you.
All right, buddy.
You guys take care. Be good. See ya.